Hello and welcome to the Rioho Wellness Podcast. This is Margit Jefferson and I am here with Andrei Gospodarczyk, the founder of Rioho. The vision behind Rioho Wellness is to create a tipping point in wellness worldwide, and this podcast will contribute towards that. In each episode, we explore different health issues that present as case studies in Andrei's practice. They range from everyday common health problems through to extremely serious health issues and illnesses. We explore body parts and how they respond to nutrition and environment, and we work on inspiring people to change their life for good through an everyday wellness focus. Rioho is a wellness modality that is unique because it focuses on healing and wellness through basic food and exercises that maneuver the body back to a state of balanced health. People literally jump out of their skin with energy and vitality when they follow Rioho. And it's an incredible turnaround for many who have had low energy for years through to people who have had complex health issues that don't seem to budge. The podcast is an interview format and ranges from 20 to 60 minutes. And if you'd like more of an introduction on Andrei, please see the 3-minute introduction in the first podcast on the homepage. And at the end, I'll be here to give you a little bit more information. So without further ado, let's get into this episode. So the first question is, what special food treats do you recommend over the Christmas and New Year week so people can feel like they're really celebrating this occasion?
As long as you stick to whole food, you can't go wrong. Now, there's nothing wrong with having rich foods like salmon and snapper, halloumi. Just think that all of these foods that are rich and strong and tasty, they're condiments. And we can overindulge in them and celebrate. The Greeks were vegetarian for 3,000 years. Now, what they would do once a year, Temple of Athena, of course, and they would kill a cow, and everyone would get a bit of that cow. It's the right way to think. It's a celebration of life, and it's an indulgence in everything great and wonderful. It's the right thing to do. If you're in a really cold climate, the rich food is to keep you bloody warm, you know. You're miserable, you're cold, you've been inside for weeks, months sometimes. You're snowed in Europe, and the Christmas season evolved from people trying to cheer each other up. They would carve a little apple out of a piece of wood, paint it red, and say, here you are, stick this on a tree and it'll brighten your day up, because you get very down during that deep time of darkness and quiet and isolation. That whole St. Nicholas thing where you cheer each other up, you get together and light a fire. And then we've got the Christmas season in the middle of summer, which translates to a time of great abundance. And the other side of the planet has this also, this huge abundance at this time of the year where you celebrate all the great foods and the abundance and the fullness of life. It's important. Now, the great foods, of course, in our community is seafoods, but you can also go a little bit heavier, you know, poultry. Maybe not a lot stronger than that. I wouldn't recommend a lot stronger than that. But you will find, because you've been eating well, that you don't need to go stronger than that. Now, the first mouthful will make you shake and shiver with delight and maybe revulsion even. I was at a Christmas party just a couple of days ago, and the first mulberry I put in my mouth literally felt like a drug, where I shivered and shook and jumped up and down on the spot because it was so sour and so strong and such a big hit for me. It was great. And you go, whoa, that's a party. That's fantastic. Then I had another one because it was so much fun, but it wasn't anywhere near as strong. And then the third one felt like I could keep eating them one after the other with no big experience. And the same thing will happen to you. Your body very quickly adapts. So have little bits and enjoy it. It's great. The first grape, the second grape, it's terrific. So have these foods, but as I'll tell you later on, there's amounts, and it's important to manage this sort of thing properly. You'll find that good quality beer, maybe not the cheap beer that's made with preservatives and colorants. These things are deadly. Chocolate that's made from pig fat and preservatives, the cheap chocolates. are very, very different to good quality. You don't want to be eating bad quality, and they should be expensive. Good quality is expensive. The cheap stuff is cheap because it's cheap. It's nasty. And there's no great pleasure in that stuff. There really isn't. When you buy good quality chocolate with cocoa in it and very, very little sugar, if any, and you have a little bite of that and it's very bitter and strong, it's great. But do have the other stuff in there. Look, one of the great things at a Christmas party is a huge bowl of freshly cooked vegetables chopped up into little pieces. It's exactly what we had at our Christmas party just the other day. They were seasoned with salt in the boiling, and they were garnished with olive oil, umeboshi vinegar, brown rice vinegar, and absolute joy. And they stood up just as well as a taste and as a pleasure to the hummus and the flatbreads and the snapper and all the rest. But you've got this filler. It's proper food there. It's not just a whole table full of very strong food and condiments. Try and make it so that there's choices there for you if you're serving people. If you're out, then you can have bits and pieces of things. Maybe before you go to the big party, you're not doing yourself a disservice if you have miso soup and a bowl of brown rice before you go. And then you pick at the little things that are over there. And you go, people will say, have another one, have another one. And you say, oh, look, I've got this one. And you just keep that glass of wine or that glass of beer or that bottle of beer in your hand and sip at it slowly. It will affect you a lot more than normal, of course, this Christmas. Maybe some of you, this is your second Christmas, you know what I'm talking about. So there's certain foods that you shouldn't go past. They're too strong. Don't go past the poultry. It's too hot in Australia to go past the poultry. If there's a little bit of lamb there, maybe if you're into that sort of thing. Seafood's your best bet. Your average Australian is having seafood this Christmas anyway, guys. And ice cream, not a good idea. It's nasty stuff. It's just too strong. If you're going to have something like that, have it on its own in between meals. It'll upset your digestion. It'll make you go crazy. It's too strong. If you're going to have sweet things, then maybe desserts made from agar and jellies and watermelon. Pick the fruits that are seasonal and chop them up, salt them just a little tiny bit, and it makes them sweeter and it offsets the fatigue. I mean, you've got to keep your energy a little bit for a few days here. That one party is not the only time you'll ever have in your life to have a party. There's going to be a party the next day and the next morning. Otherwise, you'll end up grumpy and irritable, which we'll talk about in a moment. So there's your extremes. Try and stick to whole foods. If you're going to a party, take some organic chocolate with you and make them eat most of it and you have a little bit. Take some organic wine. Wine is too strong for me, but maybe that's something you want. Go on your own taste, but good quality stuff. And remember that first sip, that first taste is what you're after, and enjoy it. You don't need to have the 5th and the 10th. You don't need them. And you get once you start to think, oh, this isn't affecting me anymore, that's the danger zone, yeah? And fillers is the important thing. If you're going to a party, take a big bowl of well-cooked vegetables or a fried rice or some salad because it's hot. You can use brown rice as 90%, 80% of that huge bowl of salad that you're taking with you, with cucumbers and red peppers that have been cooked in tamari and lettuce in there and bean sprouts. There's a million different wonderful salads you can make. The secret to a good salad is cook the different ingredients a little bit separately. So the bean sprouts are lightly parboiled and then sprinkled with brown rice vinegar, just so it's crisp still. The carrots and the different vegetables are boiled, just still a little bit crunchy though, and cut the same size as the rest of the vegetables and the salad pieces in the bowl. The capsicum is parboiled with tamari until it's half the size. And of course, the rice is got a little bit of depth in it still, not overcooked and mushy. And then mix all of those things together. Wonderful. Peas are wonderful. Maybe even little tiny bits of fruit in there, some currants maybe throughout the brown rice salad. Take that along. And good food people love. They really do. Whether they live on pies and vodka or not, everyone loves good food like that. So there's some suggestions for you. Explore the possibilities, but have a good filler and try not to go past poultry as a strong food. Stick to seafood if you can, and try not to have junk food. And remember, that first bite is what you want. You want to taste. You don't want to eat it as a food. You want a taste of good, fun things and enjoy it. But if you have too much, it runs into problems, which I'm sure we'll discuss more in a minute.
That's great. Really good. I'm sure people have taken a lot of notes on what they can do to add some good stuff into their menu, because that's fun, as you say. So, evolving on all of that, if someone does have too much food, because often there is so much feasting over 3 or 4 days and visiting different families and having different meals, if someone's got a tummy ache from overindulging in foods that they don't normally eat, can you give us 3 specific remedies that they can do that will help fix that?
Sure. Okay, please go shopping, everyone, to get some kuzu. Kuzu is an arrowroot starch, and it's a white powder that you use for diarrhea. Okay, so won't go on about it, but that's one of the first things that'll happen to you. If you're a little bit healthy and you've had far too much of something, you'll get diarrhea and a painful tummy. Kuzu is magical. It binds it all up, neutralizes the toxins that your body is saying, oh my God, get out of here. Just like a relative that's turned up that you can't stand and you're trying to get them out. So use the kuzu this way, where you dissolve 1 teaspoon in a cup of cold water, and it won't dissolve in hot. So you have to stir it in just like corn flour or arrowroot, and stir it in and it goes white. The water goes white. And you heat that up and it goes a little bit cloudy and maybe even clear. Add a drop of shoyu and mix half an umeboshi plum into it, and you have the perfect remedy for detoxing, a natural antibiotic from the umeboshi and a coagulant with the kuzu, which binds all the toxins together and neutralizes them and throws them out. It's a lifesaver if you have the diarrhea effect. If you have the headache effect, then it's umeboshi with ginger. Now, you can have both, of course. Many people do. So the umeboshi and ginger grated together, like you grate a little bit of ginger, and we use this for a hangover cure, especially after New Year's Eve. And it's not fun feeling sick, and it's good to get rid of it. Umeboshi grated with a little bit of ginger. I mean, the umeboshi is about a whole plum or half a plum, and then you get a little bit of ginger and grate that and mix them together. Now, the ginger amount is about 10%. So a little bit of the size of the umeboshi plum, and mash them together, mix them together with a spoon or a chopstick or something till they're blended properly into a paste. Add a little tiny bit of warm water or bancha tea, and first thing in the morning when you wake up, and it's absolutely magical. It's the greatest thing to have that pain dissolve. So it's important to get rid of that horrible headache thing and feeling because of your response to other people and the misery. You don't want to be miserable in this great time. Yeah, there's a couple of little remedies for headache and gut pain. The other things that you can do is just have in the fridge made up miso soup as a little thing that you have as a mouthful throughout the day to slowly recover. Then gamasio and brown rice and have that for lunch. And you'll feel a hell of a lot better for the next session of partying that night. It's the best recommendations I can make for you. There's other remedies for more specific things, but they're the good general ones.
If someone has a very rich meal and then goes to bed feeling very bloated and full and the after effects, is there something that they should take before bed, or should they just take it when they get up?
There's not a lot you can do while it's in you that way and your body's trying to. It's a little bit scary. You've overdone it. You just need to lie down, let your body process it. The only other thing maybe that'll settle your stomach a little bit is bancha tea with a couple of drops of shoyu in it. But it's scary because the stomach likes to have the most yin thing on top, meaning like you want the heavy food on the bottom, the savory food on the bottom of your stomach, and you want the lighter food on top. So usually we start off with salty at the beginning of the meal and sweet at the end. You don't usually have sweet at the beginning and then savory at the end because the stomach hates that, and you end up, there's flip-flops in your stomach, and that flip-flopping turns into hiccups, it turns into wind and gas, it turns into stomach cramps, it turns into lots of burping and great discomfort. So you don't want to put some medicine on top of that. You need your stomach to just sort of calm down and settle. The only thing I could recommend as a general rule is putting half an umeboshi plum in your mouth and keep it in your mouth, and that little bit of alkaline will dribble down your throat to the stomach, and that can calm things down enormously. So as a recommendation for if you can't even sleep from the pain and discomfort, put half an umeboshi plum in your mouth and lie down. But you can't sleep with a full stomach. It's terrible, and you can then take days to recover and be very poor company and snap at the kids, and then we run into problems.
Now, what about drinks? So everybody likes to deviate a little bit at Christmas time. What sort of drinks do you recommend over the Christmas and New Year week so people can feel like they're celebrating?
Some people have stomach problems, some people have large intestine problems, and some people have liver problems. You really need to trust your senses and your judgment. We're all different. The one thing you shouldn't do is have sugary drinks. We're talking about cocktails and mocktails and cheap wine and cheap beer. They're just not worth it. Good quality drinks are the right way to go. Otherwise, you're just literally drinking poison. It's just not fair on yourself. It's going to create problems. It's not a reasonable thing to do. So, on the other hand, there are organic wines now available everywhere and very good quality craft beers. And don't overindulge. Sip at these things. They're supposed to be sipped at. They're supposed to be enjoyed a little bit while you're making up stories after a meal. Don't drink too much during the meal. Save it for after the meal, because the body likes the liquid on top of the food. It doesn't like the liquid in between the foods. I mean, it's nice to have a little bit during the meal, but don't try and have a lot during the meal. So good quality beers, good quality wines. Now, spirits is something that affects the liver. You might have a liver problem, and so maybe it's more sensible to have a beer. But go on your taste. If you like wine, then have wine. But some of us have very bad lower back problems, so wine is the last thing you want, and the spirits is a more sensible thing to have. Of course, spirits are stronger than wine, and of course, wine is stronger than beer, but it really depends on your condition. Some of us are much safer with spirits than we are with wine, because wine will destroy your back and make you a very miserable company if you've got a bad back. So if you've got a bad back, please avoid wine. If you've got bowel problems, then beer is really not the right thing for you, and you're much safer with spirits. If you have a liver problem, meaning that you're terribly, terribly exhausted and get very irritable and angry easily, then spirits is not for you. It really isn't. Maybe none of those things are for you, and you're just going to be silly like everyone else without any alcohol at all. Or maybe you have like a half a glass of beer and just enjoy that. Maybe next Christmas is the right time for you. You don't want to just fall apart. If you're just starting to feel a bit better and your back is just starting to feel like it's healing, maybe you can jump around and do a bit of dancing instead. Maybe flirt with someone that you shouldn't and be dangerous that way.
What about things like a raw, unpasteurized kombucha or grated ginger in mineral water, or a raw, unpasteurized, naturally fermented beer? So more of those types of drinks. What do you think of those as a viable option?
The kombucha I don't know about. I know that's becoming more and more popular, and I'm sure they won't do us any harm. And they're the ones that the organic foods, the more wholesome beers, the more wholesome wines, and good quality spirits is your better option. Don't go for the junky stuff, the really cheap, nasty stuff, even if you run out. What happens is we have one glass of something or half a glass of something and we feel okay, and then we have another one. It's that next one that is going to cause our problems for us, even the organic stuff. But at least we're avoiding the nasty stuff. And people might make comments. And be careful when you take your good quality organic wine and beer to the party. People will see it and it'll disappear so fast because everyone wants it. Everyone is interested in this stuff. It's not just you, even they'll give you a hard time.
Now, we did talk about some specific remedies for a hangover just prior. I don't think we need to cover anything other than what you've said. So the umeboshi remedies, is that right, or is there anything else?
No, they're the ones. I mean, gamasio is for nausea. They're the only other one that we should mention where you're having very strong nausea. Just put some gamasio in your mouth and just sit there for a little while and you'll see it neutralizing. And also, please, I mean, these are things that I recommend and that people have great experiences with. But it would be nice for you to send back an email or let us know in some way that it's worked for you and it was of great benefit in the silly season. And it's all right to be silly, of course, but be careful, because just because you feel good after having half a glass of beer and you've done well and your back is feeling better, it's because you're doing the right things that your back is feeling better. It's because you're doing the right things that you have more energy and you feel brighter. And just keep going with the right things, but indulge yourself at the same time. Don't overdo it. Enjoy the taste. Don't use them as a food, is the main thing that we're trying to say here.
You really do support that people give themselves permission to have some fun and deviate from their normal way of eating and living and wellness for a few days, don't you? I mean, I know it sounds obvious, but why should people give themselves permission to have some fun?
The reason that you should is because it's a relief. Now, the normal thing is to work hard 6 days, 5 days, and then rest. This is normal. This is a cycle that we go through. There's focus. The Buddhist idea is very interesting, where you get up at 3:30 a.m. or 4 a.m., you shave your head and you wash yourself with freezing cold water. You very quickly eat a very sparse, tasteless, bland, unsatisfying breakfast, work extremely hard all day long, doing good things, meditating, carrying stuff, all the things that a good Buddhist should do. And you don't eat after 12 o'clock. And you get very tense and you get very strong and your eyes are narrowed, your brain is sharp and focused, and your body is worked hard. Then around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you have just a little sip of chai. Chai is very sweet. And maybe a little taste of some honey or something. And the reason you have that is to remind you of the sweetness of God. And your whole body relaxes. And you let go, and then you sit and meditate. Because you want to be terribly relaxed. But it's only a little taste. It's only a little tiny reminder. Now, of course we work hard, and then we sleep and rest. Of course we work hard all week, and then we have Sunday off, we're supposed to. And of course we have a big year and we try and get our act together, but Christmas is Christmas, and indulge yourself, have fun. Oh my God, I ate so much, my stomach hurt. I had 3 loads of spaghetti marinara and it had cream in it, and I think I've done some damage. That's okay. You won't lose it. The very important thing is to really understand that your body wants to be well. And it takes a lot of effort to get sick. It really does. You have to work at it all the time to get sick. You might have heard me say this before. It's hard to make yourself unwell. It really is. You have to push it hard. Have a little bit. Enjoy yourself. You won't damage what you've done, all the hard work you put in to overcome serious illnesses, to be a better person, to be more comfortable in your own skin, to be able to get on with your life without having the burden of problems. You do the hard work and now relax, enjoy. It's normal to let go and relax and not worry about any of that sort of stuff. But there's thoughts that you should have, meaning that you can't just overdo it or else you'll be so sick you lie there for 3 days sick. But you will bounce back from that and it'll be easy for you to get back into the swing again later. But you can indulge yourself with good things instead of just having the junk stuff. You don't need to taste those things. We've had enough of cheap ice cream and pork and white bread and these things. You've had enough of them, which has caused problems. Indulge yourself with good things. And when you have a good thing, you don't need much of it, so you can buy expensive and good quality. There's reasoning behind self-indulgence. There's reasoning behind having a break. It's normal.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's really, really good. The flip side of that is losing control. So what about that extreme of losing control in terms of food and drink and really just having, I guess, a binge session? Is this okay or not? Is this an extrapolation of what you're saying? What do you think about that?
Well, the people do, they go, oh, I've had a little bit, and so I might as well have some more, and you just go nutso. That's why I said have some food before you go to the party, even if it's at your place. Make sure you have some miso soup and some brown rice or something similar, maybe noodles in broth, shiitake broth, and fill yourself up with that first a little bit before all the guests arrive. Otherwise, you might have a big reaction to having a little bit of food because you're hungry. It's normal to be hungry, and we get stressed and we fight ourselves. This is what happens, unfortunately, where if you don't eat some good food and you have a little bit of a stress with the food that you're eating, saying, oh, I'm not allowed to have that. You're at someone's house and you haven't seen pavlova for a year and you have a little taste of it. Great. And you go, oh, my God, I'll just have another little bit of it. And you say, no, I won't. No, I won't. The only way to get rid of that stress that now you've got is to have more of the pavlova. It's not the pavlova you want. It's the stress you want to get rid of. So don't have the stress in the first place. In other words, allow yourself to have a bit of a taste of that pavlova. I wouldn't, but I mean, you're very welcome to go and have that little taste. You go, oh, what an amazing taste. Oh, gee, that's strong. I had no idea. Oh, that was great. That's wonderful. Don't fight yourself because it's actually the pressure you're putting yourself under that you're relieving. And you didn't enjoy that first mouthful of the pavlova because you were so stressed. It's only the second and third mouthful of pavlova or the second and third plateful of pavlova that you're actually relaxed enough to enjoy, which is why you're giving yourself the permission for the third one. So the secret isn't don't be stressed. You've actually done your hard work as best you can. Maybe you haven't done a very good job, but it's still the best you can. And remember the lessons from Ryoho, which is just keep going. The good food will support you. Maybe it'll take you another month or so of miso soup in the morning and brown rice and then hot dogs at lunchtime. Maybe it takes another month or so for that brown rice and miso soup to eventually heal you enough where you can't even look at a hot dog. You've done as best you can. Don't be stressed during the holiday season because that's going to make you really go on the binge. You will go on the binge if you're stressed. The secret is have some good food before you go out. That's one way of dealing with it. Or you might be a strong enough character to turn up to the party and eat only the reasonable sort of stuff. But most parties, you'll only find the white bread and the hundreds and thousands. I don't know what people have at their Christmas parties, but it's usually just all the stuff that is too much of everything, which is great, and I'm glad. Quite often now there's prawns and there's barramundi and there's noodle salads and watermelon and things like that, and you can have a great time with all of that, I'm sure. But it's a good time to have a little bit of good food before you go out.
Yeah, that's good advice. There's so much information out there about the psychology of eating well, and there's a lot of people who beat themselves up if they don't have a good food day. I'm curious to know why it's important people don't beat themselves up. I guess I'm linking it to that relationship that people need to have with their body, the parent-child relationship that you've discussed at length in other podcasts.
I know what you mean, that we beat ourselves up because we know the right thing to do. But it's also okay to let yourself wander a little bit and experience things. It's okay to experience the bad boy relationship or the bad girl relationship where it's dangerous and do naughty things and enjoy foods that you shouldn't normally have because it's a Sunday, it's a holiday, it's a relaxed time, it's a little bit of stuff that is not approved of by your parents is okay. It's all right to have those extra experiences. And you might even discover you don't like those things anymore. Self-indulgence is okay, and experimenting with things is okay. People overindulge, of course, and it's normal to overindulge, as we were saying. And there's a psychology of knowing the right thing. People say that everything is okay. I say that everything is not okay. There's things you should do, and there's things you shouldn't do. The big difference is that in any given set of circumstances, there is exactly the right thing to do. And that varies according to each person. But we all know that there is the right thing to do. And so we do feel guilty when we're doing the wrong thing. But let me tell you that the right thing to do is to indulge yourself also and taste the fruits of your labor and know that you've tried the best you can. Maybe you don't think you've done very well, but reward the child and tell your body, it's okay, we've done well. Okay, partners in crime, we've done the best we can. And let's indulge ourselves. And you shouldn't beat yourself up, even if you lose the plot completely and just eat ice cream for the next 3 days and you're in and out of the toilet and you go back and eat more ice cream. It's the drugs that are making you eat more of it because sugar creates its own need. Maybe it's a coffee thing and you go and have a coffee. Maybe you haven't had a coffee for 3 months. Go and have a coffee if you feel like it and enjoy it. And you'll be shocked maybe that you don't like it. It happened to me exactly. I used to love coffee and I can't stand it anymore. Things change and it's nice to have that reassurance. But on the other hand, it's also nice to indulge yourself and go, oh, I've missed coffee. This is great. But I know I shouldn't have too much. But don't give yourself a hard time for wanting it and revisiting the old self. You might find that you're much happier with the new self. It's okay to indulge and it's okay to know what the right thing to do is. And that's why we beat ourselves up a little bit and we give ourselves a hard time because there is two parts of ourselves. And do understand that the child in us, the animal part of us, is very self-indulgent. It doesn't want to get up in the morning to go to work. But if you do get up and get ready on time, it's so much nicer not rushing for the bus. It's so much nicer getting your work done in time and not waiting to the last minute because you live on stress. It's so much nicer to do things the right way. You're proud of yourself and everyone else is proud of you, but judging yourself is the biggest judge. They say that when you die, there's no one to judge you but yourself. Very interesting thought, isn't it? So, yeah, don't give yourself a hard time, guys, over Christmas. Indulge yourself. Or not. Some of you might not. We're talking about indulgence, the majority. Some of you will be just so delighted there's no one around and it gives you a chance to just eat nicely. The kids have gone away for a week. Husband's gone on a fishing trip. Wife has gone to Melbourne to visit the relatives, whatever. And you've got a chance to just live on very simple, good food. Chew your food, enjoy yourself, enjoy your health, enjoy the glowingness of yourself, meditate a lot. There's the opposite also.
I just wanted to ask you, where do you draw the line? So indulgence means different things to different people. I'm interested to know what your view on taking cocaine, ecstasy, or other drugs instead of alcohol, for example, and sometimes instead of food, for example, that people do a lot of during big celebrations. What's your view on that?
Yeah, there is a new thing now. I'm old enough now to know that this is a new thing. That, yeah, they had cocaine and heroin and these sorts of drugs in the 20s, of course, and there's always been opium and there's always been these things around. And they come and go in phases, but they never thought of them as recreational. I mean, they used them as recreational, but they never thought that they were anything other than embarrassing and dangerous and antisocial. Marijuana can throw you off for 2-3 months. If you have a blood sugar problem, do not have marijuana. It gives you really bad blood sugar disorders. You don't need to. It's not a comfortable thing for people to have. I know it gives you a little bit of a lift, but you're much better off indulging in learning how to meditate properly. If you're craving marijuana, we did have a podcast on drugs. It makes you antisocial. It does. And things like ecstasy, you might think that it makes you more social and gives you a wonderful time and all the rest of it, but it creates so much stress in your body. So what I'm saying is that these sorts of drugs really, they damage you. That's why I say keep away from the ice cream that is poor quality. Keep away from the beer, which has got full of preservatives. These are chemicals that actually change your brain and you lose perspective. So if you have marijuana, most of you will just not be able to stop eating ice cream for the next week. And then it takes you at least a month before your sharpness of the mind, your clarity comes back. It's not worth your sense of self. You're damaging the parent part of you. You're not damaging the child part of you, the animal part of you. You're damaging the animal part when you're having things like too much food and too much beer or something, you're damaging the animal part of you, the bones, the chemicals in you. When you're having drugs that are going to create euphoria for you, you're missing out on life. They're robbing you of the opportunity to find bliss. They're robbing you of the path that human beings should be walking down. Maybe you're not there. Maybe you're not having euphoric moments when you're meditating or just enjoying the beauty of being alive and looking at a tree, picking up a flower and feeling the joy of the identity of a flower, that the flower is not soaking into you and communicating with you through its simpleness. Maybe you're not having those blissful moments of existence. But let me tell you that it's not something that you should rob yourself of the opportunity. You shouldn't be having these sorts of drugs that then stop you from having those opportunities in the near future. It might take you years to get there, but you won't get there if you start having drugs. They're not compatible. One will rob you of the other. It's just not worth it. Plus, it makes you antisocial. You only want to be around people who smoke marijuana, and then you only want to be around people that have drugs. It doesn't allow you the broad perspective of the other aspects of ourselves, which is other people. So try and avoid these things over the silly season. It's not worth it. Maybe you'll be bored and boring this silly season because you're not having drugs, for those people who are into those sort of things. It's not something that I have any tolerance for personally, and I hope you understand my reasons. But you'll do what you need to do maybe, but I don't see any need for it, and I see it as a lot of self-harm.
Moving on to the digestive system, we've talked a lot about digestion in most of our podcasts and how significant it is. And I'd like to talk about the 3-day rule. So the 3-day rule of both doing harm, but also then the 3-day rule of repair and change and restorative health. So can you explain why 3 days is a very significant period for the digestive system briefly, and how we can use it to our advantage during Christmas?
I'll try and be brief. So your body naturally adapts overnight. What you're doing at night while you're sleeping is your body is adapting to the previous day's activities, foods, lack of activities, whatever. It's storing the toxins and repairing damage, etc., etc. So it adapts so that whatever you did the day before, you will crave more of and be capable of dealing with the next day better. And if you have one more day like that, then your organs change a little bit. So the blood quality changes a little bit the next day, and then that has a little bit of an impact on your organs, your nervous system, and your attitudes the following day. So it takes roughly 3 days to make an impact. Those of you who have changed lifestyle a little bit and gone for a run one day, gone for a run the next day, and then the third day, it's the third day that you feel very reluctant, because that's the day of change. Let's flip the idea here and think about indulgence rather than healing. So if you have sugar one day, it changes you a little bit for the next day, and your body starts to adapt to having that kind of chemical in you. And then the third day, we have sugar again, and your body now wants more of it because it's used to it. It'll adapt. It takes 3 days. You have it one day, it'll try and adapt the next day. The blood changes a little bit. But if you don't have it the third day, you can sneak past the demon. Just be careful. So that's the 3-day rule. That's how it works. There's another story, which is if you've really done a lot of damage, which happens, don't worry, after all listening to this, and it goes out there, and you've had a drinking session of wine with the old girlfriends, and you've had tons of beer, and you've gone on a boat and there was nothing but beer on the boat for 3 days, whatever, and you've done some serious damage, and maybe spent the next 2 weeks partying because you actually got healthy enough to party for 2 weeks because of the wonderful healing you've had over the last few months. So you heal quickly, and it takes a long time to get sick. Maybe you start having a bit of sugar and say, I feel fine. I don't know what he's talking about. You do feel fine because you've toughened up. You've gotten some minerals in your blood. Your body has healed a lot, and you're feeling a bit more like a teenager, and you can't party really hard for a couple of weeks. There's a wonderful Australian party animal. He's old now, but he's renowned for his drinking. Is an advertising executive, I saw an interview of him saying, I'm old now, so what I have to do is go hiking, go swimming, doing lots and lots of exercise. Then I'm fit enough and strong enough to binge drink for the weekend. So he has to go into training now. And it's the same with you, where you've maybe done enough healing now where you can binge out and not feel too bad. This sort of idea is good to keep in your mind. Don't overindulge that part. Maybe you are tough now. You're more like a teenager now or a young adult, where you can overindulge for a few days and stay up all night and do it. But then you can spend the 3 days healing time, where be strong for 2 days, where you just have miso soup, brown rice, gamasio, maybe vegetables on top, or just organic whole food. But the healing thing is miso soup, gamasio, brown rice for 2 or 3 days. But it does take the third day. So maybe after New Year's, you might need to calm things down that way. So there's the program.
So yes, it's almost like a secret weapon if people can remember the 3-day rule, 3 days in and 3 days out. It's a really great thing to have as an anchor in your wellness strategy, isn't it? A little bit of a serious side to Christmas and New Year, because it's a time when lots of family have arguments and disagreements and breakups. It's poor food and drink choices are poor, and there's not enough rest. There's hot weather, financial stress, jealousy, mental health issues, relationship stress. They're all the ingredients for a recipe of disaster. So I'm interested to know, what are your thoughts on why this happens, and what can people do who are in that zone or witnessing that zone? What are some tips and tricks? It'd be great to have your perspective on that.
Okay, now the first thing to realize is what these emotional outbursts are about. We all know that you can take a few deep breaths to calm down once we get overexcited. There's places in America that started in Japan where there's a lot of emotional suppression, and in Korea, where you can go to these places and they have effigies or blow-up dolls or punching bags that look like your wife or husband or boss, and you discharge on those punching bags and you feel a lot better. We all know going for a walk and waiting for a little while. Now, that's an interesting thought if you think about what that means. It means that you're discharging something. Now, we're sitting around during Christmas time and having a lot of strong foods, and the statistics are that most breakups, relationship breakups, happen now. It's not just an anecdote. It's actually a known fact. The vast majority happens now. And the reason for that is because we've had too much wine, too much cream, too much butter, and there's pressure in you chemically. It affects us emotionally. So what I'm saying is, if you go for a walk, you burn off that emotional excess. We can get emotional as a discharge. Some of the gases and chemicals that are discharged in your body from certain foods make us emotional. If you're not following me, just understand a very simple idea that you will understand, everyone can. If you drink a lot of alcohol one day, the next day you're angry, grumpy, and irritable. It's exactly what I'm talking about. And it takes time for your body to process those chemicals and get you back to, let's say, normal. So you can understand maybe now that by eating a lot of rich food and just sitting on your bum at a dining room table or watching TV, people get emotional because they're having a lot of strong, rich foods. Now, going for a walk is the best thing. And if you're starting to feel a little bit cranky, someone snaps at you and you really start to lose it, make your excuses. Remember how much it means to everyone that you're giving and friendly, and go for a walk. Look, a cold shower, a swim, any of those things. Know that most of the emotional stuff, and otherwise you'll regret it enormously. Yeah, we all have the nasty auntie relative that'll bait you, and maybe your anger bubbles up. But remember that losing your temper actually means that you've lost your edge, and try and get it back. Just as when you feel it's getting too much, remember my voice, go and jump in the pool, go for a little walk, and you'll go, oh yeah, I'm okay again now. And make a joke, going, oh, why are you such a bitch? Or Make fun or just give in. Be the sweet one. It's okay to try and love your enemy at Christmas and apologize for you just breathing and existing. It's okay to be the generous one. The other side is not worth it. The other end of the repercussion is not worth it, where everyone's trying to pull you off the auntie that you're trying to strangle, or the huge argument about whether you are flirting with the person you shouldn't or not. And maybe it's coming from your partner where they are overreacting. And you can just say, oh, darling, let's go for a walk. You know, it's not a problem. Da 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 da. And just go for a walk. Make them go for a walk. Or better yet, take them out to the backyard and hose them down. See how that works for you.
That's right, hosing down the cranky, belligerent people in your life. And it's, it's all sorts, isn't it? It's not just the auntie. It can be the stressed husband who's had a massive year at home and then overindulges and then just lets fly at the kids or kicks the dog and yells at the kids and that sort of thing. So
that's right. That's right. And it does happen, and it's very common, and that's the reason that happens at this season. It really is the most common time for that, yes.
Yeah, so having that higher degree of consciousness and tolerance is very important.
Yeah, it's very important, and understanding that usually alcohol is part of the spousal abuse process, isn't it? It's usually the alcoholic husband that is going to be the wife basher, isn't he? And it's usually the alcoholic wife that is going to be the nasty person in the relationship and giving the kids a hard time. It's usually the alcohol is involved in there, and because it creates a very bad chemical discharge.
Very interesting. And food for thought, literally. The other serious thing about Christmas is, and the New Year, it's a time when there's a lot of people who are on their own, which can become a time of great sadness and loneliness and anguish and sometimes even depression. For people who are alone or who know, or maybe you even know someone who's going to be alone, what sort of things can these people do if they find themselves in this situation to get through a terribly difficult time?
Two parts to that is that you're on your own, and the other part is that you know someone. If you do know someone, look, do them a huge favour and take them some good food. Take them some miso soup and say, this is how you make miso soup. And we're not really designed to be totally on our own all the time like that, unless you're an ascetic, unless you're practicing something. But even those people who are practicing a meditation where they're living in a cave, they still come out occasionally and interact with the locals on a weekly basis. And of course, we're not talking about those people, but we're not really designed to. We need that interaction. So if you know someone, take them some good food and say, this is good food, and it's easy to make and it's cheap to make and it makes you healthy and it makes you sociable and it gives you extra energy to be able to get out there, and it can heal problems. I'm seeing a lot of people with serious depression problems these days. It's not getting better, it's getting worse as a society. Over 60% of people are now living on their own because they just can't cope with other people because they don't have the extra energy, they don't have the generosity in them, their heart's not functioning well enough, their lungs are not functioning well enough to share. Of course we want to give our extra to other people. That's normal, and you don't feel good about just avoiding everyone because you're broken, and you are. And so offer them something is a good idea. And I would do food for them, I really would. And you'll see, you go in there and you will see that it's just junk food. Instant noodles and ice cream and junk food. And of course, they're overly thin or overweight. That's one side. And if you're one of those people that is on your own, the same applies, where get your energy and grow with that. And the best thing in the world is really just going for a walk and looking at the pretty lights and seeing how other people are laughing and sharing and sitting on the beach and connecting with everyone, and know that you can get the energy enough to open your heart and that you're no different from anyone else. It's just that there's damage. The same way that someone breaks the leg, they can't walk. Don't take it personally, because naturally, as a human being, we share and we connect, and we're trying to get that back. If your body is damaged, you can't. A broken leg's a broken leg, you can't walk. But if your heart is broken, it can't communicate effectively. You can't speak from your heart the truth of who you are and have that reflected back at you. so that you can see yourself honestly in someone else's eyes so that you can grow. We all want that. We all want to be accepted by the people around us so that we can grow and share ourselves with other people and they can connect with us. It's an important thing. It's a necessary thing. It's a deep, deep thing that we need on this planet. But we're broken, and that's okay. It's part of your process, and be grateful for that problem, because that problem is going to actually allow you the next step in your personal evolution. So don't mind being broken. Don't mind being on your own and a bit sad. It's okay, but watch yourself heal by doing the right things. And I might be saying to you, have brown rice, but food isn't everything. Food is only a part of everything. It won't heal you. The brown rice won't heal you, but it'll give you the possibility of healing yourself. So eat well. You've indulged yourself enough, and make your Christmas about watching other people and not watching yourself all the time. Now, maybe you do just want to sit and watch TV. Maybe you do want to just be alone. That's okay. Have a moment in the day where you look at other people. Go outside, go for a walk, and watch other people, and know that connecting with other people is important. You won't see a lot of it because a lot of our society is damaged now, where I grew up in a community where all the children could run free. When it got dark, they came home. And even if it did get dark, we'd still be okay for an hour afterwards. The parents wouldn't worry. And we were 6, 7, 8, 9. We lived in a much friendlier atmosphere. Now, of course, you can't do those things unless they're just next door or something, because society has changed a little bit and it's more isolated, and we are more isolated, and maybe you're one of those people. But give yourself the permission to eat well and know that something will come along to help heal your heart, where then you can be part of the healing that needs to happen in our society.
Yeah, excellent. I think it's also relevant to remind people that there is a podcast on anxiety and depression and mental health that we've done, which a lot of people have been finding very useful and very helpful. So I'll try and remember to post that on the site as well. Just a reminder where that is. Now, moving on to our last 2 questions for today's episode. What can people use the Christmas week for in terms of downtime and reflection and setting up for an amazing year next year?
It's a great question, because, that's really what it's about. We're naturally designed to work hard, do lots of things, experience lots of things, and then have a downtime to reflect. And what I was just saying to the people who are on their own is really just a microcosm of what we should all be doing all the time, of course. And that downtime now of being with our partners, maybe on our own, just the 2 of us. Maybe we're connecting with the wider family that we haven't seen for a year. But look at them and see who you are and see your relationship to all of them, and know that maybe some of them might not be there next year, and be honest and truthful with them. And I think that the heart time is very important for us in our climate and in Australia. It's the hard time. Take aside your auntie that you've had problems with and tell them the good points. Don't have a bitch at them. Tell them the good points about how much stronger you are because of them, or how much you've learnt because of them, or the good moments. There was a good moment. There's always a good moment you can talk about with them. Obviously, me mentioning an auntie a couple of times is obvious that I had a problem with an auntie. Hey, you probably picked up by now.
I was going to ask you about that later, actually. But all good, you're human too.
yes, of course. The teenager years, very interesting. Your brother, your sister, your cousin, whatever, they'll be there, and there's a great opportunity. The universe is a wonderful thing. And it guides us. It really does. It's our parent, the same way as we are our parent. It's our parent. Your universe is a wonderful, wonderful thing. It'll just keep giving you the opportunity to heal. It'll present you exactly the right circumstances. It's downtime. So it's space there for your heart to heal. It is heart time. It's the heart time now, and the heart is the spirit gate. The heart is the one essence that is universal for heaven and you. Open your heart to these people and talk about the good things. Don't be negative. I will never, ever forget my lovely friend Mark, who was a devoted meditator and literally a saint. He should have had wings. And Mark would be at the table with all the other meditators, and we'd all meditate 3 hours a day and all the rest of it. But compared to him, we were fledglings, really. And this is my early days. And some little negativity would pop up at the table. There'd be 20, 30 of us. And we're all vegetarian, we all do yoga, we all meditate. But nevertheless, some little negative comment would pop up about something or someone. And someone else would pick up on that negative, and then someone else would mention something, and he'd wait. And I saw him then just at that little moment when it was appropriate, and he'd always find something positive. And it would just diffuse. Suddenly the whole situation would flip, and everyone would laugh or smile, and the negativity would stop. And he did it every single time. And you could see very clearly that it was not a concerted effort for him to do that. He wasn't thinking. It was his nature that he'd developed from living the life of a saint. And it was a beautiful thing to remember and to watch. And I know all of you respond with an open heart to me telling you this story. And you can do that. We can all do that. Maybe not jumping into the nastiest person in the room where you have really big issues with. And it might even be a 5-year-old that is testing you. Maybe work your way through the family with easiest first. Have a loving word for your mother and be grateful. And remember this. This is a really good thing to remember also about, as we're touching upon mothers and fathers, is don't talk about your problems to your mother or father. If you do mention problems, they will snap into mother-father mode and you will get defensive because they want always to repair any damage that they might have done as a mother or a father. Only ever tell them that what a great job they did as a mother or as a father. To always tell them how grateful you are. Tell them you are a great mother, you are a great father, and I am successful as a human being because of that. And you are, you're alive. So don't ever tell them that you're upset about how when you were 8 years old, they denied you this and denied you that. It's not their problem anymore. It's your problem now. They can't help you anymore. But if you do tell them this negative stuff, they will go into parent mode and they'll start giving you heavy advice. And if they still give you heavy advice, even though you didn't start it, because they're always saying, I'm so happy, everything is great. You were such great parents, and it'll shut them up straight away. Tell them what great parents they were and say, let me get you a drink. Everyone toast mum. And why not? I mean, you'll deal with it the way you need to deal with it. It's a general rule. It's a genetic thing. They can't help responding in a parental mode and give you advice, which you really don't want, of course, because you have to work it out yourself. They can't help you anymore. So general rule is maybe do the easiest person to be nice to. Maybe it's the cat. You can start with the cat, move your way up to the dog and the canary, whatever, and then maybe you can get to the one, practice maybe this season, maybe practice this Christmas and just deal with the cat this season and maybe one of the other next year.
It's a point well made. It's a point very well made.
All right.
Now, one final positive, inspirational thought to leave people with as we head into Christmas over the next few days.
I'd like to wish you all a wonderful silly season and be silly, have fun. But it's silly, not dangerous. And it's not called a dangerous season. That's something we avoid. And it's not the trauma season. That's not something that we want to make it. Just be silly, have fun. And being silly is indulging yourself and relaxing and not worrying about anything anymore. And taking a break is just as healing as going for a run. Catching your breath is just as healing. So I'd like to leave you with that thought. And of course, we'll be here for you next year. We've got wonderful things to offer you next year and lots of information. And please remember that food isn't everything. It's just one side of the story. It can help you with everything, but it's not the answer to your problems. All that food will do is clean your slate. It won't fix anything. It'll just stop you from being damaged in one particular area. It'll open the doors for you to step through. So like I was just talking about, step through those gates and indulge yourself and have fun because you're healthier this season. Maybe you're not this season. Some of you are just starting out, but the same idea will apply, of course, next silly season. And maybe it's something that you've been working on yourself with Rioho for many months now and you're feeling much stronger. So be silly, but don't go crazy. It's not about being crazy. Be there for your friends and take the opportunity to really open your heart, like I was saying. Food isn't everything. Your heart can open now maybe a little bit more. You're the one who's been working on yourself. And you can be a wonderful example of generosity and sweetness and healing for your family, not by making them eat brown rice and telling them off about drinking too much. No, but by you being generous and supporting them and not talking about food. And don't talk about food. That's probably a really good bit of advice. Don't talk about food. And if they start hassling you about what you're eating or not eating and how thin you are, it's really just irrelevant. And just shrug it off and tell them how beautiful they're looking. Be generous. You're healing. You can do it. You can be the generous one. So, and remember, we're there to support you. And if it all falls apart next year, let's make it better. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great time. I'm sure you'll have a ball.
And that wraps it up for today. And we hope you've enjoyed this episode just as much as we've enjoyed putting it together for you. Any listeners who would like to learn more about Andre's work or Rioho can connect and follow on Instagram and LinkedIn using the address of Rioho Wellness. We spell Rioho Ryoho and then add wellness on the end, obviously. Episode notes will be loaded up and available at riohowellness.com, which is the master website. And just a few more things before you take off. Number 1, do you have a health issue or question you would like explored in one of our podcasts? Please submit it to us at the website where there is a contact page, riohowellness.com website. Number 2, would you enjoy being notified by very short email every time we do something on Rioho Wellness? This includes notification of our up-and-coming wellness podcasts and other things towards our tipping point. If you want to receive that, go to riohowellness.com and drop in your email address and you'll get the very next one. And we hope you really enjoy it. Thanks everyone for listening, and thank you, Andre, for another fantastic episode. See you next time.